Hey, welcome back to the podcast. I'm Justin Stacy.
I'm Nate Thomas.
I'm Josh.
Your cough.
This is cough. My bad.
Oh, all right. So we are on to our next movie in the Christmas Spectacular. We are talking about the movies Home Alone and Home Alone 2. I, for one, enjoy both movies. I think I like 2 better than 1 now that I watched them back to back. I think 2 is more funny than 1. I think both have a interesting story. I know why, Nate, you don't like it. I think we've already talked about this, but you're going to mention it on the podcast, so we'll talk about it in a few minutes. I think I know why you don't like them, but if you can kind of suspend real life and like what would actually happen in real life, you suspend that, then it turns out to be a good, funny movie.
Yeah, yeah. Let me take all logic and reason away and watch me with one eye shut and half asleep. I'll love it.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's great. Hey, every movie's the best.
Child Services would have taken the kid after the first movie. There would have been.
Yeah, and to do the same, have the same issue back to back years. I mean, come on, worst parents of all time. But to me, it's a fun movie. So I digress on all of that. But anyway, I guess follow our YouTube channel, subscribe, please. Like our videos, share, and comment. And before that, I just want to show my ugly sweater of the Wet Bandits. The Wet Bandits and the Sticky Bandits.
Nice. I didn't catch that, like what kind of Christmas sweater that was.
That's what it is, yeah. Sit back, relax, put your feet up as we open a bottle of pop culture.
We're gonna talk about some really cool stuff. Well, Josh, Nate, and I, we're gonna blow this thing up. We're gonna talk about the movies you love. And if you don't, well, that's just tough. But we're gonna talk about shows that are awesome. You'll say, whoa, when we're talking about Blossom. This will be your one and only stop for everything nerdy in a bottle of culture.
Alrighty, let's jump right in. So I was thinking of a way to describe this movie badly. And
tell them what it's really about. Yeah. Not to describe it badly, just read the synopsis.
That's true. That would probably describe it badly.
This is a terrible, terrible story.
Yeah, this is just bad parenting. This is what this is. It's just 2 movies about really bad parenting. And that's describing it greatly, I think.
Yeah. I have thoughts. So many thoughts.
Yeah. Well, let's start diving into your thoughts.
All right.
Let's start out with why you don't like these movies.
Well, first of all, these movies are harmless. They're good, dumb fun. I just don't think they're good movies. I can't imagine today sitting down with the kid to watch it and being like, hey, what's the moral here? Because Kevin is a terrible character. He's the most unlikable protagonist I've ever seen. He's a bratty, ungrateful kid. The parents are as absentee as they come. All of the family are disposable. There's not a person to root for. When the most likable person in your movie is Daniel Stern as the idiot thief, there's a problem. It makes fun of old people. It makes fun of homeless people. The police are the villains. There's not a character to root for. And you watch, also, there's no way an 8 or 9-year-old, I know, it's a movie, but an 8-year-old left in that situation does not become a diabolical mastermind. They die. I mean, I watch it and I'm like, how is this a hit? How in the world was this movie a hit? Also, Uncle Frank, I'm just going to go ahead and tell you, I don't care whose brother it is. if somebody as a guest in my home threatens to hit my child, that person's leaving by their choice or mine, and they're not coming back.
He's also a mooch.
And they're not going to come back the next winter and act the same way. Are you
Yep.
kidding?
Look what
The
you
best
did, you
part
little
of the-
jerk.
The best part of the movies was Tim Curry in the sequel. And that's because Tim Curry could read the phone book and make it enjoyable.
We also had a little nice small role by Rob Schneider in that too.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I thought the best part of the sequel was the trio at the hotel.
Mhm.
Oh, by far. By far.
I felt like the second movie honestly didn't even need Harry and Marv.
Well,
They didn't need it, right? Because it was just as much of a comedy, Kevin being inside the hotel. You're right though that for being a protagonist, he is not very likable. Like he's not very
No.
he is a bratty kid that, you know, he in the beginning of both movies, he's stubborn, he does something outlandish, he gets in trouble, he won't apologize, and then he gets punished. And you know, in the second movie, it's a little bit different because his punishment didn't directly result in him being left alone. It
Right.
was his impatience in wanting to put batteries in his talk boy, and that's what caused him to end up being in New York. You know, but I think it's kind of
But I
funny
can buy
that
that.
yeah, that's believable. That could happen. The other one, the first movie, no way it could happen. Like, if it did happen, then there is no reason why the police couldn't show up, get the permission from the family to break into their house,
Right.
and resolve the issue. You know, there's no reason why that we would have had a movie, but we needed a movie, so that's why we got it.
And look, I understand suspending disbelief. I don't want you guys to think, because look, I also understand that when I watch the superhero movies, I'm suspending. Those movies, you're meant to suspend belief. This movie is supposed to be set in, here's the dreaded word,
Yeah, I know. That's the interesting thing. Like, you even get some fantasy stuff in these movies. Like, when Kevin goes to the basement by himself, you start seeing the stove down there basically come to life, and it's moving and such. And it looks like it's alive anyway. And so I feel like you kind of get elements of child's imagination in these movies. There was another scene that I noticed in the second part that was like, this is the most unrealistic thing in the world, where Marv gets electrocuted, you see his skeleton, and he's fine. Like, it's hilarious.
First of all, Marv and Harry,
Yeah.
Yeah.
they should have both died multiple times.
Well, oh yeah.
You get hit in
There's
the
Rick
face with
scene
a full
alone
paint can
would've
coming
killed
down
him.
like that. It gives you
Yeah.
a concussion if it doesn't give you blunt force trauma.
yeah, and then Marv got hit by bricks at least
Yeah.
5 times, and he was able to walk away, shake it off. Like, so it's a very unrealistic movie. Movies,
It's a very
both of them.
cartoony movie.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
And I feel like that's the only way you can, with this type of humor, like pain obviously is a big factor, the funny, but like you couldn't do this in a very realistic movie, or else it would be a thriller by this point. It'd be a horror
Yeah.
film.
Yeah. I think a lot of it, maybe it's just because it's meant to be a family PG movie, that they they couldn't do the things that they had Kevin do and it'd be realistic. Because if they did, then it's no longer a family PG movie, right? Because he's killing people. So they have to shake it off. It's basically a cartoon. It's a real life cartoon is what we watched. And, you know, I like it. It's different.
I mean, you also like cartoons, so that's
I
okay.
do also like cartoons. That's right.
I mean, yeah, I see that connection.
Yeah. And
That was meant as a compliment. I think it came across like an insult to followers and listeners. It was meant as, I can see that.
yeah. And you know, it's also interesting. This is one of the many instances where we see, you know, sort of the kid being the smartest person in the room, and the adults, including police and everybody else, is dumb, just completely dumb. The hotel staff dumb. You
I
know,
hate that.
that's basically South Park. That's what they do. The kids are
that's
the
like
smartest
basically
ones.
Simpsons right there.
And
That's,
Simpsons too. Yeah.
Something I realized watching these, like the second one, this literally could not have been a Christmas movie in a way, because like there's like Christmas is there, like as a kind of a holiday vacation thing, but like it literally could have been placed during any other time, like summer.
They could have.
Or-
They could have done the same scenario for any time. I mean, I guess it makes it more interesting. Honestly, it's probably more successful because it is a Christmas movie, because they put it in that time frame.
I think so.
Yeah. So a part of the original idea of the movie, the Home Alone movie, was that the person who wrote it, and I forget who it was, but the person who wrote it said that his family had such anxiety. I think it's for the father specifically, had such anxiety about going on family trips that he always was afraid that they were going to do something outrageous, like forget something or someone out, like forget a kid. And that was a legit fear that his father had, that he would forget something that important. So he turned that fear, that irrational fear of his father, into a movie, and really from the kid's perspective. And maybe that's why this was such a success. Both movies really was pretty big successes.
They were financially successful.
Financially, yeah.
No doubt.
It's because the target audience really is kids to watch this.
I remember going to see them both in theaters.
I watched them both in theaters as well as a
Although
kid.
it's weird because even at 12 or 13 years old, I didn't like the first one. I just didn't like it. And yet my friends and I all went to see the second one.
That's interesting.
I can't believe, like now I'm like, why did I go to see it? Even though I think the second one is a better movie. Although
always the burglars that was always going
Well-
back and watching it. They were really the ones that, to me, that made the movie.
They stole the show.
Yeah.
They stole the show, but really not in the
come on.
second one.
Joe
The first
Pesci.
one,
Joe Pesci in anything.
Yeah.
Because he plays such a villain in movies. He's so likable in movies. He's so good.
Would this have been his first like PG-ish movie?
yeah, I read that this was his first kids movie.
Because
And
I'm used to him being in like gangster films, and then to go back and watch this, I kind of didn't know if this was like his first family style film.
yeah, they said that he had a really hard time cleaning up his speech because I guess he curses a lot, and he had a really hard time with that. And also something that he did was he kept himself from, and I don't know if Daniel Stern did this, but he did this. He kept himself from Macaulay Culkin during filming. So, like before filming or whatever, they didn't have any interactions. The only interactions was on when they were filming scenes together. He did that so that Macaulay Culkin would feel as though Joe Pesci is Harry, is this terrible criminal. It just believability. He did it for believability, and I think that's really good acting skills to do that.
Well, probably he met Macaulay Culkin and thought, I'm just going to stay away from this kid.
I don't like this kid.
Like if I read the script, I'd be like, I don't want to be around this kid unless I have to be.
So some interesting notes that I read today. In the first movie, it was I don't remember if that home is actually in Chicago. It may be in the suburbs, but the home, like all of the indoor scenes in the home, was actually filmed in that home. Like they didn't use sound studios for this, which I found. Yeah, I found that really interesting. That the whatever family family home that they used, basically they moved them into like one area of the house and closed it off, and used the rest of the house for the filming. And I was like, well, that's really interesting. The other thing was, it was obviously wintertime, and they were trying to figure out like what they would do for fake snow because it hadn't snowed yet. And I think they used potato flakes in a lot of the scenes because it hadn't snowed. But they said that it did end up snowing before the end of the shoot, so they got some actual snow. But a lot of the scenes was potato flakes you were seeing.
Huh.
The same type of issue in the New York City, the part 2, is that they wanted it to be a winter wonderland type city, so they had definitely planned for snow, and they had budgeted for fake snow in this one. and then it come a blizzard. So they didn't even have to use any of the fake snow. I was like, that's great. Like, that's pretty interesting stuff.
That is great.
Mm-hmm.
John Hughes was a part of this, right? Still, or because I think he was a part of Home Alone somehow, whether it was a writer or because I don't know.
Yeah,
don't know
I think that was the writer Hughes. That name rings a bell.
'Cause he
I think he
had-
may have wrote these.
with him, the 80s and early 90s, he just had hit after hit. It just
Yeah.
seemed like he was just, doing so well. And I think there's another reason why the movie did so well too, because like his name was attached to it. Because I mean, you look at everything from The Breakfast Club, on Bueller's Day Off,
It was
or
written by
whatever.
John Hughes.
Yeah. Also, John Williams scoring this. I mean,
Yeah.
What happened to that guy?
like he can't put out any bad music. Like I love the score on this thing. It is beautiful, beautiful Christmas music.
It is good
His
music.
theme is probably one of my favorites of the Christmas style
Agreed.
holiday songs, and I feel like this is one that stands out among like a playlist for me.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder how that conversation went. Hey, John, we know you scored probably the greatest original orchestral recording for films ever. I'm talking about the Star Wars movies. And, we know you did Jurassic Park, or you're going to, excuse me. And you've done Indiana Jones. Do you want to do this kids movie about a kid getting abandoned by his parents at Christmas time? Sure.
They're just
Like
not-
those things
Sure.
not go together.
Yeah,
And I'm not taking away the music's amazing.
it
But
is.
like that I'd like to hear that conversation. I know it was 4 years before Jurassic Park. So
You're a good composer when you can actually do that. You can like jump from like sci-fi, family,
Mhm.
whatever other style that he's done, like, and it just still stands out.
And I love that he was able to use a lot of the Christmas melodies and
Yeah.
compose it to something different
hmm
for this movie. And that's just beautiful. So
The theme, the song on the second part, where it's kind of like coming to a close, where Kevin's getting all the stuff built and prepared.
Mhm.
oh yeah.
Like when he kicks that in, I'm like, I love that Christmas theme right there.
I do too. I listened to that soundtrack, in the Christmas season for sure.
I don't, but now I'm gonna have to listen to it a little bit.
Yep. So some other fun facts about this movie: it has alternate names in other countries. And I
Ooh,
don't know
let's
what-
see if we can come up with them.
Okay, try it.
Abandoned.
The Kid
Close.
version of Die Hard.
Oops, we did it again. Terrible Parents, the sequel.
What'd you say, Josh?
I said the kid version of Die Hard.
Die Hard, the
So-
early years.
So the legit alternate names is Mom, I Missed the Plane, and They Forgot About Me. That's it. I'm sure that, and maybe the second part is They Forgot About Me Again. Oh, so I don't know if you noticed, but you obviously noticed that John Candy's in this movie, but there was apparently quite a few
Who?
John Candy
Yeah.
references to planes, trains, and automobiles. I think in this
I didn't
movie,
catch
like,
that one.
yeah. So there was the old guy. So I'm talking about the first movie. The old guy and his wife. They're talking to Kevin's mom, and she's
Okay.
trying to trade out the tickets, and she's trying to convince them, to take her earrings and all that stuff, bribe them. And then he said, she's got a whole box full of them dangly ones. Well, apparently that's an Easter egg to Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, which he's in. And and he seems to buy a box full of earrings in it. So I was like, what in the world? Like I would have never known that because I've never watched that movie, but it's kind of funny.
A long time since I've watched it.
Yeah. And of course, John Candy's in that. And apparently, John Candy in this movie, he got to improv all of his lines. They did not have anything set in stone written for him. And I guess he is just a really great improv actor, or was a really great improv actor. And they let him improv all of his lines. So every line that you're hearing in the first movie was improv from him.
Huh.
I was like, that's impressive. Like, I mean, he pulled out that funeral story just out of nowhere.
And you
I
know,
think
like
John Candy-
directors will only give certain people the
Mhm.
ability to do that.
Mm-hmm. What was you saying, Nate?
And I think John Candy, because he died so young and so suddenly,
Mhm.
he's kind of lost outside of that 15-year window.
Yeah.
And then maybe a little longer, maybe a little shorter. Like, he was like in everything.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And he would show up and be bit characters. He'd be comedic. He was quick witted. And when he died, it's kind of just like, other than those of us who love, like I love Uncle Buck.
Mm-hmm.
Also not a great film, but I love it. And whatever movies you want to name of his. But outside of those of us who were during that time, he's kind of forgotten to history.
It's
Mhm.
true.
I
Yeah.
feel like during that time period, there were so many other people that just was so that kind of overshadowed him, like Chris Farley. And
Chris
stuff like
Farley.
that.
Mm-hmm.
They were just because like John Candy, he was just like a lot more toned down as far as his like
John
personality
Candy was
goes.
a much better actor than Chris
Yeah.
Farley ever was going to be.
And I feel like he would have been one of those actors that would have made it into like the dramatic roles, kind of like Tom Hanks.
Yeah.
Like he would have been one of those type of actors that would have went away from comedy and then become like a really good dramatic actor.
I
over
agree.
time.
I think he would have.
John,
It's
John
unfortunate he
Candy,
died too
sorry.
young.
with the comedic background, what was he, Second City or SCTV? You know, John Candy had that improv background,
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
which let him do those things, let him be dramatic. Comparing him to Farley, Farley had the live sketch background,
Yeah.
not the same.
And to do
You know,
improv, I
not,
feel like
and
it gives
they're
you
not
an
the same
edge.
skill set. That doesn't take away
Yeah.
from Chris Farley, who's a funny,
Right.
hilarious guy.
Oh yeah. And I feel like that's like a skill that, you know, that most actors will have to just get over time, the ability to just improv and make it work within the moment. Like that, to me, that'd be something I couldn't do on the fly.
Uh-uh. Not like that. I mean, like, I can sometimes come up with something to say to somebody, but not consistently every time.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the other improv part of Home Alone 1 was Kevin, and I'm thinking this was not like an agreed upon improv. He just did it and they liked it. So basically, he had the shower scene and he had the lines, and when he was putting on the aftershave, he was supposed to like pat his cheeks, remove his hand, and then say because it's gonna it takes a minute to burn, you know. But
I
he
know,
didn't
dude,
do
that
that. He was
shit's
like
my
he
head.
slapped his cheeks and then and that's the one of the most iconic scenes from the first
Yeah.
movie, right? So that's why
That's
they
what
kept
was-
it.
After the movie came out and was a hit, that's how it was marketed.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I thought that was really cool. Another thing is the movies, the angels with filthy souls, and then the angels with filthier souls, or something in the second part. That is a completely fake movie. Like they just made it for Home Alone, which
And I
is
really-
interesting.
And I really wish there was like a movie kind of like that.
An
as a-
actual movie.
Yeah.
That's what they should have done after Home Alone was finished. They should have made those movies.
I think if you actually put all of them together, it actually makes a very congruent movie. Like all the clips that they have, I think like it actually works well. Like it kind of makes sense.
Yeah.
One of my favorite scenes of this, like of the first one especially, is the spider scene.
Oh yeah.
And
Yeah.
what was funny is I forget the guy who plays Marv, but
Daniel
he
Stern.
thought the whole
Daniel
thing was
Stern,
supposed to
yeah.
be a fake spider.
It's a real spider. So, from my understanding, they did a lot of the stunts themselves. Like Joe Pesci didn't do anything that was elevated jumping. Like, you know, he took big falls in both of them. He didn't do that, but the other stuff they did do. And I'm thinking Daniel Stern did most of all his stunts, and that was one of them. And I'm sure that scared him to death. Like I love his yell. His scream. It's such a screeching, like cry for help. I love it. It's so funny.
I
Oh,
love like his chemistry with Joe Pesci. Like it's
Uh-huh.
they're two totally different people, like personalities, and it just works really well. Like you got Marv, who's like kind of like this up, you know, big personality, but Harry's a little more tight and straightforward. But you know, it's like I don't know.
It's funny. They're both basically idiots in terms of thieves. I mean, they do stupid things. But obviously, Harry is the smarter one. He's the more mature one. He doesn't do as many stupid things. And I love when they are going into doing the home burglaries, and Marv is leaving their calling card by leaving the water on and plugging up the sinks and flooding the homes. And Harry's like, you monster! Like, why would you do this? Like, that's beyond his level of corruption. Like, why would you do this?
We don't waste water.
we don't flood people's homes. We just steal their stuff.
Right. That's right. Enough is enough. Take their stuff. Do not destroy their home.
Exactly. And when they were in the homes and was getting all the stuff in the bags, Marv had a crowbar and a bag open, and he was just shoving it in there. I was like, you're breaking the stuff. Like, what are you doing? Oh, goodness. Oh.
Even though like the second one is, the one that I always thought was the funniest, but like I know it's supposed to be like a very empathetic moment, and it's supposed to be sweet with the homeless lady, but like she's still living outside, and he's going back to a warm hotel. It's like,
he didn't really change her situation at all. He made a friend.
Dove, I'm going to go back to my warm hotel.
Yeah, and I mean, Kevin's family's wealthy. If they can afford that home, they are wealthy. And yeah, so they made a friend, and I guess that was kind of the heartwarming message of the movie. And really both movies, because he made a friend of that old guy too. And both the old neighbor and the homeless lady, they were both sort of the outcasts, of the movies. And he befriends them.
Got a happy ending at least.
Yeah, he did. He got a happy ending, and it was that was actually some of my favorite parts of the first movie was the interactions with him and Kevin, and then Kevin actually helping him out and talking him into reaching out to his son. I thought that was they helped each other out because he obviously saved him from the wet bandits at the very end. So I actually really like that. And the scene, the very last scene where the old guy meets up with his son and granddaughter, and they show up to his home. That was an add-on to the script. That wasn't in the original script. That was just something that one of the writers protested, said, we got to have this happy ending to that for that guy. And I'm glad they did, because I think it helped the movie. So some other fun facts. McKully Culkin received $110,000 for Home Alone 1. Home Alone 2, that got upgraded to $4.5 million.
Jeez.
That's a big pay increase between two movies and probably 2 years.
That's true. What do I make a year? Increase.
But it's amazing how many movies Macaulay Culkin was in at a really young age. Like, he was probably one of the biggest kid stars there was in the late 80s and then 90, 91.
Really in the 90s more than anything.
Well, after Home Alone, he retired, my understanding. I don't know that he made any other movie after Home Alone 2.
He did Richie Rich and The Page Master.
Yeah, he
did come back.
Yeah, he did come back when he was adult. He came back with
Richie Rich. Yeah, he was still a kid then. Yeah. But I know, I was reading that really the reason why his career stopped was by his own doing. He retired as a kid.
Oh, he did.
So, yeah.
Well, all his movies would probably, with the exception of only a few, were financially good. So he probably could just go ahead, just kind of like, well, I can. Yeah,
he was wealthy at that point. He could quit.
And before, the Home Alones, I think the only movie I can remember him being in was that I know of my knowledge is Jacob's Ladder, and that was a very small scene.
He was in Jacob's Ladder. He was in Uncle Buck. He was in this. I think this was probably after Home Alone. May have been before. It was My Girl. I don't remember the date
it's close to that same time.
It's close to the same time.
The Good Son
it's the year after
The Good Son. The Good Son. So he was in quite a few movies early 90s, for sure.
One of the things that I read a long time ago about the second one was like
Uncle
you
Buck,
know,
Jacob
where
Ladder, Home Alone, Only
he was
the
like kind
Lonely,
of
My Girl.
exhausted in a way when he did this film.
Hmm.
And you can kind of see that in his acting. Because his acting's not that great in any of the films. Because like he doesn't really show a whole lot of emotion, you know, especially in the second one. But you know, I guess if you blow up as big as you did, I guess you would be kind of exhausted to do to do what you did at that age.
Yeah.
Looks like he took a 5-year break between 98 and 2003.
That ain't that bad. Picked back up in 2003. Of course, I feel like he, you know, as an adult, he really hasn't been as successful acting wise. I can't think of anything that I've watched that as an
No.
adult.
No, I'm looking at his filmography.
Yeah.
I mean, it's multiple things, but nothing I would say, oh yeah, this is great.
And like all
Yeah.
his siblings are actors too. And I've seen at least one of the siblings' films in, you know, some period of whatever. One of them being, I think, Rory Culkin or something. He played in Mean Creek, which is
Yeah.
a kind of like an
One,
indie film.
one of the brothers was in Succession on HBO.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Or is
One of
in
the
Succession.
brothers, I don't know which brother it is, but one of the brothers was Fuller on Home Alone. He played the Fuller character. Also, speaking of Fuller, in the first movie, his punishment is that he has to sleep on the third floor, at least my understanding, with Fuller. And then he complains about, well, Fuller wets the bed. And so what? You know, you're punished. But what happened to that? Like if he had to sleep with Fuller, then Fuller should have woken him up, or at least known where he was. Like again, it's that part of the disbelief. You have to suspend reality because that shouldn't have
Also,
happened.
Why in the world are all those people staying in one house?
Well, it's a big enough house.
Yeah.
Not for 14 people.
Yeah, maybe.
I assume the uncle and his wife and kids were only there for the holidays, and I figured.
That's exactly what it was. Both years, Kevin's dad was funding these. Well, no, his uncle that lived. I think it was the same uncle that lived in New York. Was funding the trip to Paris for everybody, because even in the second movie, you hear them mentioned Peter's brother. And that's where Kevin goes to the house that they're reconstructing, and they say that he's in Paris. So that's just a throwback, I think, to the first movie, where he's in Paris and he was getting everybody to come and see him.
But they didn't let on like he was paying for it, because in the second movie, Uncle Frank looks at Ken and goes, "No, your dad spent a lot of money on this trip."
True. Yeah, you may be right. It could have been that they were just going there to see him. They were just going to see him.
I am right.
Also, there was another scene in the first movie that I felt like should have had a point, but I don't know that it did. And that was when they were it was the Kevin and Buzz was fighting and around in the kitchen over pizza. Buzz was acting like he was going to puke. He punches him in the gut, and then Buzz knocks over the milk and blah, blah, blah. Well, when Peter is cleaning it up, he gets one of the passports wrapped up in the paper towel and throws it away.
Oh,
so one of the passports is now in the trash, but they didn't really do anything with that. I feel like what was the point of throwing the passport away? Like, isn't there a specific reason you threw that passport away?
Well, I mean, I guess if they were doing the counting, it would have seemed like they gave them all out. Because
maybe if that sister was using the passports as how many heads to count.
Yeah, because like wasn't
maybe that's but no, that's not it, because she counted that neighbor kid as Kevin.
Mm-hmm.
So she thought the number was still accurate based on Kevin being there. So that couldn't be it. I don't know what the passport thing was. And they never really used the passports any other time. And I would bet, if I had to guess, that there was a specific reason that got cut in the final cut.
I can see that.
Yeah,
I mean, because like there is some flaws to this, but like I feel like logic, you have to kind of like really throw aside a little with this.
I would bet that passport would have just, coincidentally been Kevin's. and so it's now mysteriously missing. So when they get over to Paris, they've got the accurate count of passports. I don't know. It's probably something stupid, and I'm reading way too much into it. I don't know why I care about that scene so much, but
Yeah, of all the
Probably.
things you've chosen to nitpick about this movie,
that's
that's what you pick. I mean,
That's it.
not that Josh or I've been any better, but you of all the things to pick on, that's not the one I would have chosen.
Also, I love the scene where he's shopping for himself, and he goes and he's trying to buy a toothbrush, and he asks
Yes.
if the American Dental Association has approved, and like, how would anybody know that?
But you know what? I need a tooth. I'm looking for a new toothbrush after Christmas. I've got one, but you buy one every so often. I want to do that.
You
And be
should.
like, excuse me. This teenage food line can be like, I don't know. I might go to the pharmacy though. That'd be more.
It's
fun.
probably going to be a different reaction though. I mean, it would legit be someone tell you Google it, or they Google it themselves. Like, you could actually get the answer now, whereas before you couldn't have.
Google saving lives. Look at that.
Mm-hmm. Saving teeth. A dentist.
And being
Oh.
real, like for him to actually go out and grocery shop and get stuff he needs at that age, I probably would have been like, "What do I get?" Like I don't know.
I would have starved and just I would have stayed in the bed the entire time.
Lunchables or something like that.
Yeah. He was, and again, that goes to the believability of this thing. Like, there's no way an 8-year-old kid's going to be as successful, even just taking care of himself and feeding himself and doing the normal things, let alone becoming Batman and defending Gotham, because that's basically what he's doing.
Except
that was definitely a theme.
Except
in the
that
90s
kid
for-
had Alfred.
That's true.
Yeah,
Kevin
that's true.
McAllister's got jack squat.
That is true.
Yeah, that was kind of a theme in the 90s. All the kids were like a lot more ahead of their time than in what reality is.
Well, now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, the 90s was full of shows that, was like themed around gadgets and traps and booby traps and even games and Inspector Gadget and, Batman, the Batman animated series. You just have a lot of fandom in wanting to set booby traps and have stuff happen. And I think maybe that was just the era, and that's why this movie happened the way it did.
Mhm.
And then in 2003, Saul came out.
Yep.
That's the fan theory out there. Is Kevin became Jigsaw.
Oh, I've read that.
that would be interesting, for sure. But I mean, okay. So definitely one more thing we should probably touch on for the second movie, and that is Trump making his like 10-second cameo. I read that the reason why he's in it is because the only way he would agree to let the studio film in the Plaza Hotel was, number one, pay him, and number two, let him have a cameo. So that's the reason why he's there.
Huh. Don't know that it was worth mentioning, but okay.
Yeah. Yep. But Tim Curry, I agree with you that he steals the show probably in the second film.
He's such a captivating actor.
And he has the transition from like the Grinch scene to his.
Wasn't that
face,
amazing?
That was
Yeah.
really good.
Uh-huh.
And I had forgotten. I had just because these are not my favorite movies, obviously. So they're not ones that I won't probably ever watch them again.
Mm-hmm.
And like the ability to play like a bad guy esque. To me, he's just doing his job. Like this
Right.
kid with all this money, I would be suspicious too. But
Well,
I mean, to me, he's
the
like
only
more-
fault really is it took them too long to figure
Yeah.
it out. They
I
were
mean,
too
I would say he's the
wishy-washy with him.
close- Yeah, I would say
Also,
he's
have
the
you ever
closest
tried to
thing
check
to a
into a hotel
responsible
without a
adult. Oh, sorry,
signature?
Nate.
Me
Right.
too.
That doesn't happen.
Like, I am 44 years old, and even if I book the room online, I still have to sign something when I get there.
Yeah,
Yep.
you do. Absolutely. So that's pretty crazy. But yeah, I mean, all in all, these are definitely movies that I watch every year. So they're my holiday classics.
Nothing
Yeah,
wrong
that's
with that.
mine.
Yep. All right, good stuff. Well, let's move on to what we're going to talk about for the next week, and that is going to be the movie Elf. So that's definitely one of my Christmas favorites as well. Will
That is
Ferrell.
my favorite Christmas movie.
Yeah. Would you say that was Will Ferrell's breakout role, Hollywood wise?
No,
would.
I would say it was probably something before the like old school. or something.
Anchorman.
Yeah,
Was that before Elf?
I believe so.
It's somewhere similar.
It's
I'll
around
look for
the
next
same
week.
time for sure.
Yeah.
Old school is another. Not that I want to get into it tonight. It's another one that is a guilty pleasure.
But yeah, this is Peter Dinklage being in this, and that's before I knew who he was. So
I knew him from like the Death at a Funeral movie, the not the remake, but the original, the one that he was in, and that but that's just me.
That's just me.
Because I'm
Thanks for noticing me.
good stuff. Well, I definitely look forward to talking about this movie.
Tomorrow.
Yep.
Not tomorrow. All right, moving on. Closing quotes. So for the closing quote, I chose maybe one of the notorious quotes in either movie, and this is, of course, from Kevin. I took a shower washing every body part with actual soap, including all my major crevices, including in between my toes and in my belly button, which I never did before, but I sort of enjoyed. I wash my hair with adult formula shampoo and use cream rinse for that just wash shine. I can't seem to find my toothbrush, so I pick one up when I go out today. Other than that, I'm in good shape. Bye, everybody.
Peace.
Thank you so much for tuning into the podcast. We hope that we were able to entertain you at least for a spell. If you see value in our craziness and want to continue supporting us, please follow us on social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, like our videos, and share our content with someone you may know. Also, let us know how we're doing. Make suggestions for the podcast. Leave us a comment. Heck, send us an email. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time on the Bottle of Pop Culture podcast.